Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, track stars. At whatever point of day you're listening to this, I hope this finds you in good spirits. Thank you for your support. I see we have a few new subscribers. Welcome to the Track Star family. And please, if you don't mind and you're enjoying the content, please hit subscribe, all notifications, leave a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And please, if you don't mind, also leave a comment. I love those more than anything. Okay? Now, let's get into it because congratulations. This is the last track on this CD of the Mirror series of Pride and Narcissist. Yay! We are doing the work to uproot all of the negative things when it comes to bettering ourselves, learning how to love ourselves, like we spoke about in the self love series. Okay. And we can only go up from here. We tore down everything that was negative, everything that we speak to ourselves negatively. Okay. All of the thoughts, all of the things in our heart that would make our hearts hardened, we're getting rid of it piece by piece. And it's a process. It's not going to take a few weeks. I know I've only started this channel in podcast form and it's only been a few weeks, but I can guarantee you, as long as you keep working on yourself the same way I was instructed to, you're going to feel a lot better when you start putting things into perspective and you start leaving certain people where they're at. I know that was kind of hard to hear, and I don't mean to judge anyone, but there is something called righteous judgment, okay? Because I care about my track stars. And we're all on different tracks in life, but ultimately, this is one track record, and this is to focus on your track record, your personal track record, so that all of the other track records you have with others are just as successful as the one you develop inside yourself with the help of the Most High. So, with that being said, let's dive in. Let's get the CD spinning. Now, we spent some time talking about pride and narcissist and the Greek mythological character Narcissus. Gosh, I cringe even saying his name because he pissed me off. like, yo, whose man's is this, right? And we have to talk about it though, because let's be honest, this mirror series, if there's anything to take away from it, it's knowing that usually the people that we deal with and how they treat us, there is a correlation between how they treat us and what we allow versus how we treat ourselves and what we allow within ourselves. You treat yourself based on how you feel about yourself. Let's be honest. And who you surround yourself with, whether it be your family, your friends, your spouse, your significant other, usually is a reflection on what's going on inside the both of you, more so you, because at the end all be all, you can only you for the most part can only control yourself, right? So that's what we're dealing with this series. It's the mirror, it's the hard truth, it's the things we don't like about ourselves, it's the things that we may not consciously think about, but subconsciously you might ask yourself, yo, Everybody keeps saying the same thing about me. Is this true? This is your time to just pause, get away from everybody else, and tell yourself, okay, God, help me. Help me identify those things so that I may no longer act like this, think like this, talk like this. And if I don't see it, who am I hanging out with that's pouring into me? Okay. So I just so happen to talk about narcissism. Thank you. Shout outs to For No Fame for allowing me to collab with him. Okay. Because we spoke about narcissism just yesterday. And it was a great discussion. Now, I didn't necessarily get into the type of relationships when it comes to narcissistic tendencies and abuse and whatnot. And I can't stress this enough. I am not a clinical psychologist, nor am I a clinical psychiatrist. So all of this is just strictly my opinion. I'm not trying to diagnose anybody with this. I'm not encouraging others to try and diagnose loved ones in those regards. This is just strictly off of research from people who are licensed and have gone to school and received degrees on this. And this is also Bible based, okay? Cannot stress this enough. So I went ahead and all of this week, I've been really hearing, coincidentally, so much about narcissism, down to certain people in the live chat from For No Fame. And they happened to, before I could even put it in their live chat, they mentioned 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. Shout outs to Ephraim Hurdle. If you're listening to this, I knew I liked you. Boulevard 73, I like you too, because you brought up some great stuff about arrogance. And see, this is what I'm trying to talk. Like, I know there's so many people out there who think like us, who see things for what they are. Because what did I say a few episodes back? We're not going to lie to ourselves anymore. We're going to call things out the same way the world likes to call out everything bad. We can do that, but we're going to call out good things too. So we can build on it, right? So again, 1 to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 6 doesn't necessarily use the term narcissist, but this is how we can identify why society is the way it is right now. And it starts off, that specific section of the Bible, it says godlessness in the last days. Very peculiar word, the choice of word, the diction in where they say godlessness. And I'm going to explain why. So godlessness in the last days, starting from verse 1. But understand this, that in the last days there will be times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant. There goes Boulevard 73. That's your word, sir. They're what? Arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit. Ah, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid such people. Okay? So, what is this saying? Ultimately, in the last days, people are only going to be in love with themselves. The same concept of narcissists in this cursed mirror. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go back to track 2, where we explain the story of Narcissus and Echo. Very powerful. Okay? People are going to be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud. There goes that pride. We spoke about pride. That arrogance, abusive, disobedient to their parents. These kids, we like to talk a lot about millennials and Gen Z and just why are they the way they are. But like I told a whole congregation in my church not too long ago, you talk so much about millennials and Gen Z, but who raised them? Who? Because if you're not raising your kids, guess who is? Society and all of their schemes. They're coming for your kids. And I can't stress that enough. Okay? So back to this. Disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless. These people, they just textbook narcissism. They don't care. They lack empathy. Okay? They're unappeasable. You cannot please them. It's never enough. Slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good. They can't even identify good because that's not within them. Treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit. Okay? Look at this selfie culture. I don't care how good your food looks. You're going to take a picture of your plate, but you're not going to take a picture with the person who's paying for it. Ladies, I'm talking to you. You're sick. Get over yourself. I'm sorry, y'all, because this gets me mad. Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. So Monday through Saturday, right? You're doing your own thing. Okay? You might go to church on Sunday. You may not go to church on Sunday. You know why I don't judge people anymore for not going to church on Sunday? Because there's so many people within church, not mine, but there's so many people in church that don't have a good representation of who Christ is because they don't know him. They don't. They don't spend any time with him Monday through Saturday. They do whatever they want to do in their flesh. They don't walk in spirit. And they're poor representations of what God is and who he is. Yeah, I'm talking to y'all. I don't care if you're mad. I'm fighting for people who have no voice. I'm fighting for these kids. Okay? You have the appearance of godliness because, like all the cliches you could possibly hear out in society. Oh, cleanliness is next to godliness. Okay, so you took a shower and put on $300 perfume. But guess what? You still stink because you don't love people properly. You judge people not on God's terms, but on your own because you like to uplift yourself. Yeah, I'm talking to you too. Okay? Avoid these people. That's why the youth, they don't want to come to church anymore. You guys push them away, and we're upset with you. But I'll tell you what, I have good news. For those of you who don't want to come to church, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but let's even take a look at what church is. Church is not necessarily established within four walls. You know who the church is? The bride of Christ? It's the people who love God and are making an active decision every day to pick up their own personal cross. And you know what the cross is? Their own personal cross? It's the decision to deny flesh every day and walk in spirit with God, walking hand in hand with Him, no matter how hard it is. Okay? They are making the conscious decision not to keep repeating the same mistakes, to ask for God's grace. They are humble because the only way to fight these narcissistic tendencies, we already spoke about it, it's through grace and forgiveness of self, but you can't receive forgiveness from God unless you forgive yourself first and forgive all others who've done things to you. And humility, okay? Then you do the work. And you know what? Because I know I just said a mouthful, but you want to know a real way to test if somebody has narcissistic tendencies? Let's go further down. We're going to stay in 2 Timothy chapter 3, but I'm going to go to verse 16 and 17. All scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness, that the man of God or woman may be complete, equipped for every good work. That was a lot to unpack there. All scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof. What is reproof? You know me. For those of y'all that have been listening to me for the past couple of weeks and hearing my voice that I cringe every time I hear it, y'all are bearing with me. I appreciate y'all, track stars. Trust me. I'm tired of hearing my own mouth. But let's look at what the Oxford Dictionary has to say about the word reproof. An expression of blame or disapproval. What does that sound like to you? In order to not be a narcissist, okay, you can't deny reproof, blame, disapproval. You know what that takes? Humility. The opposite of pride. And I'm sorry for yelling, but sometimes I gotta talk to my people like this, in the words of For No Fame. Because some of my people are hard-headed. You don't get it. Even when you see narcissistic tendencies in your face, you still question it and suffer later. We tired of this. Okay? We're not dealing with it anymore. Anybody who comes in your life and they can't take any type of blame or disapproval and all they do is deflect and they don't take accountability, start questioning why you still have them around. As long as you do it in love and they still question it and they deflect and they act up, question why you have them around. Please do. I dare you. I don't care who it is. However, if it is your children, nip that in the bud. We're going to talk about that eventually. We're still below ground level. We're at the lower level. Okay? We broke through the ground. We hold on. We only building up. After this, it all goes up to the other relationships. Okay? So I went ahead and looked up about 10 different ways to identify someone with narcissistic tendencies. Again, I am not a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I have done some studying for this. And I've experienced particular people with either A, narcissistic tendencies, or B, they were a textbook narcissist. Keynote were. I don't know where they are right now. God bless you. You're a weirdo. If you're listening to this, seek help because I'm about to put out a whole restraining order against you, sir. Thank you. Now let's get into this list. And in my humble opinion, narcissists are bred. And you know why I say that? Because as hard as parenting is, because there's no real rule book or manual on how to raise children. But the best and closest thing I can advise you to do is get into this book. Get into the book. The ones that your mom, your grandma, auntie, all that, they read it, okay? Get into it and know it for yourself. Not their interpretation of it, not the people who cherry pick which ones to follow and ignore the significant ones for their own convenience. Because there's a verse in the Bible that says that too. How you condemn and whoever decides to try and twist the Bible for their own good, take things out and put things in, they condemn themselves. If you'd like me to get into that, drop a comment, okay, for this video, and we can go into that as well. But back to the topic at hand. Here's the 10 ways to identify a person with narcissistic tendencies. And again, please don't go ahead and self-diagnose or diagnose people with narcissism. This is just for entertainment and educational purposes only. Number 1, they need excessive admiration. They fish for compliments, right? We know a few people like that. And that's why I call it narcissistic tendencies. They may not be a narcissist, but they may share a few traits with somebody who has been diagnosed by a clinical psychologist with narcissistic disorder, personality disorder. Now, number 2, discredits other people's feelings or belittles them. Or how would this culture call it? Gaslighting, manipulation. Sound familiar? Okay. Number 3, cannot handle any form of criticism. There goes that reproof. They can't take an expression of blame or disapproval. They cringe because why? They have a God complex. You see why 2 Timothy chapter 3 is so powerful? How does it start off? Godlessness in last days. Narcissism is not of God. It is a God complex that comes from who? Well, if anything doesn't come from God, who does it come from? Did we not just talk about the movie Nefarious and who his master was and the game plan of how he fell literally from grace? And it was what who casted him out of heaven? Pride. Pride, folks. Pride, track stars. You can't tell him nothing. Let's get back into this. So they can't handle any form of criticism. And here goes 4. Usually carries a sense of entitlement. You can't say no to them, and you can't deny access to them. That access. It's a strong word. What is access? What is synonymous with access that we've been talking about in the prior series? I'll give you a minute. Come on. I can hear your brain sizzling. Consent. Access. Consent. The same consent we were talking about with the self-love series. And please go back if you need to, because I told you, as track stars, we're all working on ourselves at different paces. Okay? This is for you. This is your time. Honor your time with God. I'm just a vessel. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I'm trying to warn you. Okay? Let's get back to this list. Number 5, they're enamored with power, beauty, and success. What's up, fellas? Y'all still here? I want to talk to y'all right quick. This ain't a CD episode. We're just right quick. How y'all doing today? We know a few of those, right? A few women and their obsession with how much beauty and success they have, and that's like their superpower. They get caught up and so infatuated with themselves, and they convince you that they're just the best thing that could ever happen to you. But then sometime down the line, you're just like, wow, she's so independent. She doesn't even allow me to tell her anything. So why does she want me around? Just to shove her compliments? We all know that girl. And ladies, we all have that friend or that friend of a friend, that family member who's like that. Maybe it's the rich auntie with no kids who travels the world. Never had a man, never had kids. We know them. We know them. And if the conversation isn't about them, they're upset. They're big mad. Ooh. You mad? Because I just thought of somebody who just popped up into my head. So excuse me, y'all. So number 6, they surround themselves with people who they deem important. And usually it's the people who feed into their delusions. Now, just off of a whim, let me go ahead and see what the Oxford Dictionary thinks about delusions, or delusional people, I should say. So the Oxford Dictionary says, a delusional person is a person characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite irreversible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. Ooh! Or based on having faulty judgment, mistaken. Interesting. So they believe in a false belief or judgment about their reality, despite irreversible evidence to the contrary. And this is why I say narcissistic tendencies, because again, I cannot diagnose somebody for being delusional, but a psychologist, psychiatrist can. But we know a few. We can see it. Those who are in tune with themselves and love themselves properly and are doing the work, you can see it. Right? Okay. Let's go back to this list before I get in trouble. I got some family listening to this. Number 7 usually tries to exploit people for their benefit primarily. So this is where this goes into borderline sociopathic tendencies, which is a whole nother game plan. Okay. So some people might be wondering, what is a sociopath? Because you may hear the terms interchangeably between a narcissist and a sociopath. So I'm going to shed some light on that as well, because you know I got you, right? Track stars? All right. So a sociopath is a person with a personality disorder manifesting itself in an extreme antisocial attitudes and behavior and a lack of conscious or empathy. So that person who likes to isolate, but maybe on top of them being also a narcissist, uses people and things towards their advantage, and it benefits them. They don't care who else benefits, but it's all about them first. Now, I don't mean to try to put a stigma on anybody who may suffer from a personality disorder. In fact, if you suspect that you do suffer from one, I encourage you to go ahead and seek help, therapy, and ultimately God. This is not a place to necessarily bash them, but we got to call out the problems and identify them in order to fight back. Can somebody say amen? Okay. We got to talk about it. It's the only way to fight. This is for our kids primarily. I know we didn't get to kids yet as far as this whole experiment and project I have going on, but we will eventually, because the kids are the future. Okay? Let's get back to this. Number 8, they are arrogant. What did we just read in 2 Timothy? People in these last days of godlessness are arrogant. This is a culture that's been brewing and stirring for quite some time. It had to work a few generations, but it's working. Number 9, sees themselves as most important. Everything and everyone else is secondary. And 10, they live in a fantasy-esque world that goes hand in hand with delusion, what we just spoke about. Folks, let me know what you think. Please, I'm dying to know what you're thinking in the comment section and in this live chat, because it's disgusting. It's getting real nasty out here. And before I let you guys go, because I don't want to take up all your time today, and I also want to announce what the next series is going to be. Okay? Don't get too excited. Because after this series, that's when I want to start planning the cassette episodes with side A for the women and side B for the men. And I may or may not be collabing with some people. Some you may know and some you may not know. So keep a lookout for that. But I want to ask you guys a question before I go. And this question is mainly for those who are listening that are parents, grandparents, or guardians of any form. Okay? So how do you avoid breeding a narcissist? Because one thing I took note of being in For No Fame's panel, a lot of you have made some great points that sometimes you may feel that a narcissist can be bred by showing too much love, but I'd like to also add personally my opinion that sometimes narcissists can be bred from too little love. They haven't been shown very much love. Hmm. So ultimately, another question would be, how do you restore a balance, and what does a balance look like? And how would I even go about defining what too much love or too little love looks like? What is that? How do I narrow that down? Well, this leads me to my upcoming series called the Love Language series. Aha! And it's very important to talk about love languages, not just for intimate relationships between man and wife, girlfriend and boyfriend, but you'll be surprised how love languages plays a very important role when it comes to yourself, the reflection, the mirror, and your inner child. Let me ask you another question. If you had a chance right now at whatever age you are, I'll use myself as an example. I'm age 30. Shout outs to all the people who turned 30 this year and thought that 30 is old, because it's not. And life is actually looking up at 30, I must say. For all the Gen Z that's just like, oh my God, 30. Nah, it's lit. 20s are garbage, for real. I barely made it out. Like, mentally and spiritually and emotionally, I barely made it out. I was crawling towards the finish line. It's ghetto. It's very much ghetto. 30s are lit. And I don't look 30, so that's a plus. But anywho, let's not make this about me. So, how would you go about having a conversation at whatever age you are right now with your inner self, your child self? Let's say, what would the conversation be like with your inner self that's 5 years old? How about 10 years old? 15? That's a rough one. Oof. 20? How about 25? That's another big one. Oof. That's right on the cusp of when you actually start to mature scientifically. That's when you start to mature mentally. Mm. Or maybe we're not going to go by intervals of 5. Maybe we'll go by intervals of 2. Start with your 2-year-old self. How would you speak to your 2-year-old self? What would you give your inner 2-year-old? What advice would you give them? As an adult in this time right now, at the time you're listening to this, would your inner child feel safe around you? Yeah, I paused for a reason. Would your inner 3, 4, 5, 6 year old, at whatever age you are right now listening to this, would they thank you and give you a hug and know and have some hope that later on down the line things will look up? That maybe one day they'll develop that courage to maybe faith it till they make it, as I like to say, or maybe they grow to have a big heart because no one ever showed them love. Maybe they grew to be a good listener because nobody ever listened to them. Maybe they want to hug you because they have hope that things will look better once they get out of their current environment. Think about that. And think about the things that your inner self as a child maybe lacked. And it wasn't necessarily your parents' fault because, let's be honest, your parents gave you the best of what they could with what they had. And again, parenting doesn't come with a rule book, it doesn't come with a manual. But when I tell you the freedom you will feel when you begin to know who God is as a father and a friend, did you know that God actually identifies himself within the Bible about 35 different ways? Hmm. Shout outs to my pastor for giving me the list and where to find each name and how God identifies himself. From the Hebrew. Huh. Track stars, you know I love y'all. We're doing the work. Y'all are family to me. Y'all are friends to me. I appreciate you walking with me on this journey because this isn't just for you, this is for me too. I know somebody reached out to me and asked me, "Are you a therapist?" And I'm not. And it wasn't just one person, but I just thought it was so funny because they're just like, "Wow, your little project is so amazing. Are you a licensed therapist?" I'm like, "No." But me walking hand in hand with God, getting to know myself more by distancing myself from the world, I can definitely confirm one of my many purposes here, and I said many, but one of my many purposes in this world is to be a healer. And sometimes what sucks about people who are healers, they have to go through a lot more than other people in order to understand others that are broken and need healing themselves. Ooh. And if there's anything that I need you guys, track stars, to take away from this last final episode of this mirror series before we dig into the love language series, two things. If you find a person with narcissistic tendencies, see how they feel about being held accountable, being held to a higher standard where you may blame them or disapprove of what they do. See how they react. I challenge you. And another thing to take away, ultimately, think about what the balance would be to make sure that as parents or just as our inner child, how do we not breed a narcissist? Think about what too much love would look like or too little love. And by love, I mean the different type of love languages. Do I provide my child with a little too many knickknacks and games and sneakers and toys and tangible things? Do I not love them enough with intangible? And by intangible, do I not listen to them enough? Do I not tell them how I feel about them and the things that would encourage them? Do I not do things for them or take them places, or do I not spend enough time with them? Do I spend too much time with them? Do I take them to too many places? Like, there's so many things we need to think about here. So think about that. And next week, we're going to be shedding our lights on some love languages, what we can call textbook love languages, and some others that aren't necessarily a textbook love language, but if people knew what we appreciated, what we felt, how we felt in that moment of being in that love language, how effective it would go towards strengthening a relationship. And that goes for any kind: parent, child, brother, sister, friends, even business partners. Do you know that they have certain love languages? We're going to get into that. But this concludes the Mirror series. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Very eye opening. Thank you, God, for giving me the discernment and allowing me to see things for what they are and to be so open and loving and giving me grace and humility and giving me the opportunity to talk to whoever needs to hear this right now. I thank you. Thank you, track stars. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope this finds you in good spirits. I hope you start off your week in power, in love, in a sound mind, as the scripture says, and that you would walk with God and He would supply all your needs according to His riches and glory. And I will type and talk to you later. Toodles.